Hi, my name is Haley Miller. This is my presentation on the science of reading. So, our introduction, the three main topics we're going to cover are what is the science of reading, what concepts or theories are included, and then how we are able to use this information as educators to help our students. So, the science of reading is using research. We have studied how reading in the brain actually occurs. This is years worth of study. It's been done by doctors, educators, scientists, researchers. All sorts of people have worked on this. It just teaches us how reading occurs, so what we are able to do when reading is not occurring, whether there's an issue, if there's something they're not understanding, what part of the brain maybe they're having a struggle with, or what they're actually not understanding. We're able to target those a lot better now. This has been around for many years, but it's really gained popularity the past few years. It's really become a key aspect of teacher education, and we are learning more and more how to use this in our classrooms. So the first thing we're going to cover is the simple view of reading. This was first presented by Go and Tumner in 1986. It basically breaks reading into two parts. So it says that there are two main parts, and those are going to be language comprehension and decoding. Decoding is the ability to actually pick a word apart, to take apart those sounds, and to understand what all the sounds are that make up that word. And then language comprehension is understanding what that word actually means. And when you put all of that together, it will give you reading comprehension. Both of those are multiplied together. So if a student is struggling in one or the other, you can actually do interventions to help support them and to improve that, which will lead to better overall reading comprehension. The next one is Scarborough's reading rope. This builds on similar principles. It breaks reading down into different categories. She has two main categories. This was introduced by Hollis Scarborough. The one strand is language comprehension, the other is word recognition, and those are twisted together and they create a skilled reading rope. Language comprehension has 5 components and word recognition has 3. In language comprehension, you need background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, literacy knowledge, and then word recognition requires phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. What we're able to do is we're able to look at this and target which area our students are having trouble, whether it's the language comprehension side or the word recognition side. Sometimes it's both. If we're able to narrow it down, then we can do tests to figure out which one of these individual skills we need to build to improve their overall skilled reading ability. The 4-part mental processor is next. It was first introduced by Seidenberg and McClellan. The brain has 4 different areas that actually control parts of word recognition. The phonological processor is the first part. It actually helps with speech sound awareness. So it's going to be able to relate speech to the different sounds. The angular gyrus is the next one, and it's sound symbol associations. So being able to associate different sounds with symbols such as letters. Context and meaning processor is the next one, and it helps with language comprehension. And then orthographic processor we will talk about more towards the end, but it helps with our stored words and being able to recognize those. Once we put all of these together, that helps our reading ability and it helps reading success. So we're also able to target each of those categories and improve and strengthen their brain in those areas. Aries phases of word level reading is the next one. So they stated that learning occurs in 4 different phases. Pre-alphabetic is the first one, and in pre-alphabetic, students are able to associate pictures with words. They may be able to associate a word with something that they recognize, but they don't necessarily understand that the letters and the sounds are associated together to make words. Partial alphabetic, they're able to recognize that letters have a corresponding sound, and they understand some of those, they know some of those, but they don't know how to put them all together yet. Full alphabetic, they know all of the sounds associated with the letters, they're able to put them together to create words, and they begin building their sight word vocabulary. And then consolidated alphabetic, they start recognizing letter or word letter combinations such as ing, KCs, SH, things like that, and those different sounds, and then they continue to build their sight word vocabulary. Phonological awareness is one of the key things for reading success. It's basically just understanding that each letter has a sound that's associated with it. And some actually, we have combinations of letters that create different sounds. In the English language, we have 44 phonemes, or 44 individual sounds, and those come together to build our reading ability. In order for students to be successful in reading, they have to understand these different individual sounds, and they have to be able to know which letters they go with. They're not going to be able to read successfully if they can't assign the symbol with the sound. And they should also be able to add, subtract, delete, or change phonemes in a word easily, like replacing the p in pat for to create a hat. That would be an example of having phonological awareness, being able to substitute or change those sounds out. We can measure this with tests like the PAST test. Phonics is a general term. It's used to describe the relationship between letters and sounds. Phonics instruction has been around for a very, very long time, but it's been taught in a lot of different ways. It's varied throughout the years. Phonics has shifted more from spelling rules to whole language instruction. Now we kind of use a combination of both. But it's always been the basis of letter-sound relationships that has been key to phonics instruction. There's not really a right way. Many different schools will do it in different ways. Sometimes even classrooms will do it in different ways. But the whole goal of phonics is to understand that sounds have letters have associated sounds that you can put together to create words. Fluency is defined as the ability to read text quickly and accurately and with proper expression. So in order to do this, you have to recognize a lot of words. If a student isn't able to recognize a word, they're going to have a really hard time reading it correctly, especially giving the right expression to it. If they've never seen a word before, they don't know whether it's a happy word, a sad word, or how to express that accurately. So they have to have phonemic awareness, they have to have reading comprehension, and they have to be able to understand meaning and expressions of words. Fluency is a combination of language comprehension and printed word recognition. Vocabulary refers to the words understand in order to communicate effectively. We have to have vocabulary not just for reading, but also for speaking, listening, writing. Pretty much anything that we are doing to communicate, we must have vocabulary. Students can have a large difference in vocabularies based on their life outside of school. If they're in a home that is not literacy rich, they're not surrounded by a lot of different words, or they're in their home, they are probably not going to have a very large vocabulary. Students that have had a lot more experience, they travel, they have a lot of books in their home, they watch educational things on TV, they have educational discussions, their vocabulary is usually going to be quite a bit larger. Code emphasis versus meaning emphasis, these are just two different ideas of thought for how reading can be taught. Code emphasis places emphasis on learning code or sets of letters and sounds. Meaning is more whole word or whole language instruction rather than just focusing on sounds. Some people believe that if you focus on sounds, the students lose some of the joy of reading, but there really should be a combination of both of these. And then orthographic mapping is the process that we're able to hold on to written words in our memory. So when we see a word and we've decoded that word, it allows us to keep that word in our memory so we don't have to keep going back and decoding that word over and over every time we see it. In order to have fluency when we read, we have to have this ability. We have to be able to pull these words from our memory. And this is going to require phonemic awareness, all these things that we've already talked about. They all work together in order to have this. So in conclusion, there are a lot of complex components. There are the 4 main theoretical models we covered at first. It's based on years of research by lots of qualified scientists, scholars, people in education, and explains how reading occurs in our brains. It's made a huge impact on education in recent years, and it's changed the way that reading is taught and how interventions are done. And these are my references. Thank you.